What's their biggest need, Arcand?
I think it's a right-handed power bat. And I agonized over this one because I'm one who always says starting pitching is important, and I think that it is, and I think that it is on this team to be sure. It's a team with a good starting rotation, but guys have gone down, guys have gone in slumps. Brian Bayo had a very weird start last night, which I guess we'll talk about, but I haven't liked the way he's looked lately. Despite the 11, however many strikeouts it was, he had all those strikeouts, but still had kind of a shaky start. He's been shaky for about 2 months now, and I just look at this team and think, yeah, pitching would be good. But what I'd really like to see is this offense get something that I would like. In my opinion, the pitching has been good from start to finish. Like you've seen, even with injuries and even with guys like Whitlock and Bay and all those people going down, you've seen the starting rotation keep it together and make it work and get by and still perform well, even when they've had a couple of injuries mixed in. I think that the offense is one Rafael Devers shoulder inflammation away from being in a much bigger state of problems than the pitching staff is. And I think that's really what it's about for me. And while I do think pitching's always important, I'm more comfortable with that on this team than I am with the power hitting, especially from the right side. So I would go with a right-handed power bat, and there's a few of them out there on the trade block right now.
Okay. Anyone in particular you like?
There's a couple that I like. I like the idea of maybe bringing back JD Martinez. He's on the block with the Mets there.
Okay, I'm out on that.
I'd be into that. Is Jesse Winker a righty? I meant to look that up, but I think he is, and I think he's on the block from with Washington. And Paul DeYoung, who I need to double-check, make sure he's a righty. But these are all power bats that I see out there that I'd like. Righty or lefty, it's not as important. I'd prefer a righty, but I think that's what they need.
Jesse Winker is a lefty.
Winker's a lefty. All right, never mind.
How about our guy last night, Ryan? Brent Rooker. You saw him against the Red Sox. He actually gave the A's an early lead. Like, to me, I like your list, Arcand, if the Red Sox aren't going big game hunting, and I'm sure they're not. But, like, if you want to go big game hunting, Passan, link them to Pete Alonso. Mm-hmm. Ryan has brought up Vladdy Guerrero in the past. Like, these are guys with not a lot of term left on their deals. I think Rooker has, some time and some service time, and you might have to pay a little bit more there for a more controllable player. But if they're not aiming for big names like that,
Pete Alonso,
I would love them to do that. I would love them to aim for those names. If they don't, yours are realistic, and they should still. How much is Jesse effing Winker going to cost? Like, what's Mr. Knish going to cost to add to this team? Nothing. And so I hope they're in on names like that. I want to get to my answer here in a moment, but Kenley Jansen, always a good listen, especially with Rob Bradford on the Baseball Isn't Boring podcast, discuss this very thing. What do the Red Sox need at the trade deadline, Kenley?
If I have to go to front office? Yeah. No.
You wouldn't do it.
The reason why, because I get paid to close ball games, and they get paid to...
You got some time. Why don't you walk upstairs? Let's go.
I do have time, but I don't want to step in nobody's toes. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I think they're smart enough to know what we really need. It's obvious what we need. You know what I'm saying? So, it's obvious we need a right-hand bat. It's obvious we need a starter or two. Mm-hmm. So, and we'll go compete against anybody. So.
But you know what they can do? They can also listen to this and they get your opinion.
Baseball isn't boring.
Okay, so there's a lot of flirting going on there with Bradfo and Kenley Jansen. And I think if I'm Kenley Jansen, I'm like, I don't want to step on anybody's toes because I've tried to do that in the past and no one listens anyway. So, like, what's the difference? But he says they're smart enough to know, which, by the way, you're giving them a lot of credit, Kenley. I'm not sure
more
they
than
are.
I would, yes.
They need a right-handed bat. That's where he starts. Mm-hmm. But then he says a starting pitcher or two. By the way, that's where most of you are at right now in the big question of the day, our big Q at 2, at Jones and Mego on Twitter. The Red Sox are choosing their lane, but if they decide to add, what's their biggest need? Starting pitcher, relief arm, or a big bat? Righty or lefty, up to you. About 2/3 of the poll right now are saying starting pitcher. And so when he says they need a starting pitcher or two, that's great. I mean, the old Red Sox would add multiple arms, and they would add a bat, and, they'd add a bench player just in case. Like the old Red Sox, this is what they would do.
Right.
I'd be fine with a starting pitcher. I'd be fine with a bat. But if I'm prioritizing, I'm going to disagree a little bit with Kenley Jansen, who it sounds like even though he said the right-handed bat first, he emphasized pitching with multiple arms. I'm going to disagree with the results of the poll. I'm going to agree with Arcand. And as much as I like the running Red Sox, as I've dubbed them, the hashtag Fun Sox, don't you want to be able to win different ways in the postseason? Offensively, And you want to be able to win with your pitching. You want to be able to win with your defense. You want to be able to win high-scoring games. You want to be able to run the bases. Like, ideally, you want to be well-rounded in the postseason. You run into a stud on the other side, you need the pitching to match. You run into a big offense on the other side or a big night, you need the offense to catch up. So ideally, you're well-rounded and you're balanced. And I just don't feel like the Red Sox, and they've been better, and they could get better with Casas or other additions. I don't feel like their offense has been a massive strong suit for them. They've scored 426 runs this year. That's 12th in baseball. Like, I just feel like you could add to that more. And if I'm prioritizing, I'd love an arm as well. I'd love another starter. But who's that starter going to be, and what are they really? Is it just an arm to get you to the postseason? Are they going to be adding an arm that you're going to rely on in the postseason? I doubt it. I doubt it. Even if they got Michael Lorenzen, a name that Rob Bradford mentioned yesterday, a guy who moved last year at the trade deadline, was pretty significant in a playoff run. Even if you got an arm like that, is he cracking into your top 3 starters? Maybe. But am I sitting down Houck or Cutter Crawford? Maybe Pivetta, depending on where Pavetta's at. He's had good postseason runs before. I'll definitely sit down Bayo. And then the fifth guy, you got to figure it out.
That could be an important thing to do, though. Yeah.
But I don't know that you even need to go to a 4th starter necessarily. And so the bat's going to be in your lineup every day. And you could get it at DH. You could get it at corner outfield. You could get it at first base. There's a lot of different places that you could go. And to me, I'm with Arcand on this. I just feel like they need a little more balance in their offense. I don't want to say the fun Sox, the running Red Sox, the go-go Red Sox, whatever they are. I don't want to say that it's not sustainable and you can't win games that way. But I'd hate to think going into a playoff series, that's the only way they can win, Arcand. Athleticism, a dynamic athlete getting out there and tearing it up on the bases. What if your guys can't get on base? What if somebody shoves it up your throat in a postseason game and you can't get on base? You don't have the runners. You can't wreak havoc. I need other ways to win offensively. That's why I'm with you. I said bat.
Yeah, and another thing about it that I just sort of realized as you were saying it is that what if we, and it's not just us saying it, Alex Cora said it, Rob Bradford said it, this team's very young, very naive, they don't know how good or bad they are, they don't know what the roster is, they just go out there and play, right? That's what everyone keeps saying about them, and that's such a great thing. You get to the playoffs, that's not such a great thing anymore. You want somebody with some experience there. I know you got Devers and a couple other guys who have done it, but that's not something you have a lot of. And I think if you bring in, if you're aiming for somebody like that, it doesn't necessarily have to be a great play. Most of the players here who are on the trade block are on bad teams, and it's not like they're in and out of the playoffs every year. But they've been around a little bit. They're not just a year or two removed from getting out of their two-way contracts and their options and things like that. So that's another thing I think this team could use. But really, yeah, I mean that's what it's about. Something solid, something steady. I don't think you can count on Wilyer Abreu and Ceddanne Rafaela and a lot of these guys, as much as I like what they've done so far this year. I don't know if you can count on them to be ready to go and contribute like that in a playoff series, their first playoff series they've ever been in.
Yeah, I'm less worried about those guys. I'm more worried about, like, Yoshida and upgrading him.
Yeah.
And I know he had a big, huge hit on Friday night, and he's been a little better since he's come back from the D. I'm just more worried about supplementing guys like Rafael. I don't want to replace him. I want to supplement him and upgrade a guy like Yoshida. And I think if you bring in a first baseman DH type, you can do that. Who knows what you're going to get out of Casas when he comes back? Who knows when you're going to get Tristan Casas back? And even though Dom Smith popped a home run last night, I don't need to watch him much longer. And so
I like watching him run.
Yeah, no, that's true. So, that's how I voted. Me and Arcand are aligned on that.
An elegant gait.